My wife was tired of hearing the words, "I'm sorry." I said it so much, it didn't mean anything to her. So in today's video, I'm going to give you some tips on how to give a heartfelt apology. And you may notice that I'm smiling a little bit through the video. Stay tuned to find out why. This is Marriage WTF. Warning, we are not licensed professionals. However, we are experts on saving our marriage. Viewer discretion is advised. From a young age, we're taught to apologize. It could be something heinous, it could be something petty. But there comes a time when "I'm sorry" is empty. It's almost like "I'm sorry" becomes a formality. It's almost like we're accustomed to saying "I'm sorry," but not feeling any remorse. "I'm sorry" is an excuse. "I'm sorry" is a cop-out. So where Michelle and I came from, "I'm sorry" was part of my main vocabulary, and I know she just became numb to it because there was really no meaning behind it. And so when you get to that point, you have to make a decision that you're no longer going to say "I'm sorry." So let's talk about a few things that you could say instead of "I'm sorry" that may hold a little bit more weight to your partner. One of the things that makes saying "I'm sorry" so empty and meaningless is the fact that 9 times out of 10, when I would say it, I wasn't taking responsibility for what I had said or done. And so that's the first step. Take responsibility. So here's a few things that I think would help any of us who feel like we're in a situation where "I'm sorry" doesn't really go too far with our partner. Number one, acknowledge what you said or did that made the person feel the way they do. 9 times out of 10, we can recollect what it was we said or did that made our partner feel the way they do. And we know why we're saying "I'm sorry." But the bigger thing is taking responsibility for what it was. Sometimes we just deflect, and that "I'm sorry" is just a way for us to get out of a difficult conversation. Number two, you need to verbalize what you're going to do differently. Because, like we said before, "I'm sorry's" become empty when there's nothing behind them. If there's no empathy behind it, if there's no meaning behind it, and if there's no action to be taken to make sure that that doesn't happen again, your partner is just going to feel like they're in that hamster wheel, and eventually they're going to get tired of the same old thing happening over and over again. So if you really want your apology to mean something, there has to be a stated action that's going to take place so that you're not in that same situation again. And the third thing, so you've acknowledged what it was that you did and taken responsibility. You've basically stated what you're going to do differently. Now you just got to execute, because actions speak louder than words. Biggest thing here is that words can become meaningless when there's nothing behind them. And the action that's taken is going to mean everything in the world. Now, just because you do it once, twice, or maybe even 10 times, your partner has to see that this is something that's going to continue. It has to become habit. And that's not to say that you're going to screw up. As long as you continue down that road, you understand what you have to do, and you make a wholehearted effort to be better and not make the same mistakes, you'll see that your partner will acknowledge that and know that you mean it when and if you have to apologize again. Now let's talk about some of the culprits of a bad apology. First culprit of a bad apology is when you say "I'm sorry, but." This is basically looking at pushing the blame on someone else. It's not your fault that this happened. It happened because of, or it happened but. You're trying to rationalize it. That "but" is a justification of why you hurt your partner. So they hear that "but," they're tuning out. Make sure that when you apologize, you keep the "buts" out of your apologies. Another culprit of a bad apology is when you try to abruptly stop it, cut it, and get out of the conversation. An example of that is when we say, "I'm sorry that you feel that way," or "I'm sorry that you're upset." When you say something like that, it completely discounts that other person's feelings. And if you're truly trying to apologize, you have to acknowledge what you've done and you have to acknowledge how that person feels. And the third culprit of a bad apology is the sarcastic apology. When your partner may say to you, "You said you were sorry, but you didn't act like it." Or "You said you were sorry, but I didn't feel like you even meant it." And you know in your heart that "I'm sorry" was just to appease the other person, just to get out of it. Like you've been on autopilot and you know when you mess up, all you have to do is say "I'm sorry." Now, I'm not saying that you're perfect because none of us are. And I'm not saying that you're never going to say "I'm sorry." But if you stay away from some of the things that can ruin an apology, then I think you're going to go a long way when and if you do slip up and you have to make an apology to the person you care about. So let's stay away from these mistakes. Mistake number one, your apology may feel meaningless when it comes from a place of defense. Don't be defensive when you apologize. Mistake number two, your apology lacks accountability when you focus on how your partner feels and not on what you did. Mistake number three, when your apology feels empty and disconnected because you lack sincerity. And mistake number four, when your apology focuses on attention and not consequence. So in review, your apologies don't have to be empty. Your "I'm sorries" can really mean something. So remember these three things the next time you find yourself in a situation where you may have to apologize. One, acknowledge what you said or did to make your partner feel that way. Two, verbalize what you're going to do differently so that you're not in this situation again. And three, consciously execute what you said you were going to do. Actions always speak louder than words. So the next time you find yourself in a situation, you've apologized and you can't understand why that person just won't let it go, see if you made any of these common mistakes. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I smiled a little bit throughout, and there's a reason why. My wife and I were discussing when was the last time I had to say "I'm sorry," and we couldn't remember. See, there's a certain freedom that comes with being open and honest with your partner. And I'm excited to share my journey on how I came to this point in my life. See, I'm excited to share anything that I can to help others avoid the pitfalls that I fell into. So hopefully this video gave you some tips. So until next time, this is Marriage WTF.